This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
All the artists have been, I'm sorry, I'm gonna start that over. Cut.
Stay up there now, don't get around too far. 7, 4, 3, 5.
My least favorite thing about Bluegrass Underground? Ooh. Well, I think honestly the toughest thing about this place is just overcoming some of the logistical boundaries of the venue itself. Loading gear is going on behind me right now, up and down a hole, trying to imagine the size of somebody's, a musician's organ to see if it'll fit down the hole. It's not a cold place, but it's a humid place, 98% humidity. So that's probably, it's my least favorite thing, but it also happens to be my favorite part. I mean, it's a cave and it's a really tough place to put on a show. So it comes with challenges and lots of benefits.
So what we try and do here and what we believe this show represents is this perfect marriage between amazing natural beauty and this profound musical heritage that we have in the U.S., but in particular in Tennessee. When you have two magnificent things like that sort of come together like this, it's easy for it to go well.
My name's Wally Bigby. I'm the electrician for Bluegrass Underground. It's my job to make sure that the lights and sound all have power that they require to do the video production. So I tie in tails, the leads before anybody else gets here. Got in, so the video truck, the sound company, and all the staging get their power from me.
My name is Carly Hennigan, and I'm the floor director and stage manager and crew chief at Bluegrass Underground. And basically my job is to, as a stage manager, make sure audio gear, lighting gear, all the gear comes in and out in an orderly fashion, as well as getting band gear on and off stage. So all the day-to-day organization has to kind of go through me and my crew. I make sure that the crew is doing what they're supposed to be doing for everybody else who's in charge of different departments.
Most people think that it would sound really cavernous and really big and echoey and boomy, and it's not actually. And not to get into all the physics of audio or sound, but just the design of the room kind of keeps there being a lot of reflections that causes all those really big cavernous sounds. There is some challenges, especially with acoustic groups in here with the microphones and making sure you're getting it loud enough without feedback. And the audiences are really good about listening very quietly, though, especially when they know somebody they're here to see specifically. So. The biggest challenge is that we're on dirt, I think. It's kind of a strange thing, you know, it's like the sound equipment does take a beating dirt-wise. It all gets brought back to the shop after the show, and get all the air compressors out and blow it all out. Sometimes it gets all pulled out and completely wiped down. All the cabling gets wiped down. And mainly it's just the maintenance of the gear once the event is done.
Now we're bringing 10 cameras this time, probably 14,000 feet of fiber optics, 5,000 feet of electric cable as big as your thumb, like 10 tons of electric cable, generators, just having lunch for 125 people, hot lunch, come from 45 miles away, ship 1,200 feet into a cave and stay hot and feed an army. It's a challenge. There's not one part of this it's not challenging, but it's everybody's favorite gig every year.
It was Memorial Day of 2008, and we were looking for something to do. My mother has a place she's had for many years at Rock Island along the Caney Fork River. And we were going to rent a pontoon boat for the day, and I called the lady and said, hey, I'd like to rent a pontoon boat. And she said, well, she laughed at me. And I said, why are you laughing? What's funny about that? And she said, honey, child, if you were going to order a pontoon boat for Memorial Day, you should have called me 6 months ago. And I said, oh, well, what are we going to do now? So I said, let's go to Cumberland Caverns. And I had never even been in a cave. And my family and I, we went down there in the cave and took the tour. And coming down underneath where you see the chandelier, I sort of had this eureka kind of moment.
I first heard about Bluegrass Underground in a newspaper story, a local newspaper story up in the Upper Cumberlands, out of Cookville, story about this guy that was going to do a concert in a cave. I thought, well, that's interesting. And at the time I was doing a lot of work for PBS in video, but I was still doing sort of stringer work for radio, NPR. So I called up my editor, said, hey, guy doing a show 1,000 feet inside of a cave. And she said, yeah, well, that's interesting. Let's go with that. So I came down here, met Todd Mayo.
The idea when I met Todd, I was telling him, and he was interviewing me for a radio story, and I said, man, the acoustics in this cave are so amazing and sublime, but imagine this on television, you know, sort of an Austin City Limits meets Nova. And he said, well, actually, I produce television for PBS. And I said, what was your name again?
I said, Todd, same as yours. And we talked about it for hours that day, literally shook hands that day and said, we will make this happen, don't know how. Finally, the WCTE, run by Becky Magura, CEO, got a brand new package of HD cameras in. We called her up and said, hey,
what if we take your brand new equipment that's supposed to last all these years down into a dirt and dust filled hole in the ground and do this show? And she had been to Bluegrass Underground before, and she just smiled with her magnetic, beautiful smile and said,
I knew that cavern, so I knew it was way deep, and I kept thinking, how would we do this? So then we get this incredible grant. We get a grant for brand new HD production equipment. We're rural, we're really small, tiny. I mean, we have like 12 full-time employees, about 9 part-time employees, tiny little station in the middle of the Upper Cumberland, rural Tennessee. And we get this great grant for brand new HD equipment. And they said, Todd Mayo and Todd Gerald, what if your maiden voyage with that equipment was in Cumberland Caverns? And I went, oh my God, are you crazy? I mean, $1 million worth of equipment for us that has to last a lifetime. take it into a cave, build out a production control room in a cave. It's hard to not go with a vision when somebody's really got a vision of something that could happen and they have the passion, you know they have the passion to make it happen, and I knew they did. I thought, we got to be a part of that. We just got to be a part of that.
And it really was what I call magic. And to me, what magic is when the sum is greater than its parts. And I see magic most often in music. But you know, where you see a band and there's 3 of them or 4 of them or 5 of them, but together they're more than they are individually. And that's what Bluegrass Underground is. And that's what our team is.
So I knew a guy named Alan Branton, and Alan had toured the world. He'd started as a young man with Shoko. He toured with The Who and the Rolling Stones and Michael Jackson and Madonna and the Beach Boys, and he's lit Super Bowl halftime shows. And I called him up and I said, man, I need some advice on this show because it's, you know, in a cave. And he said, I'm in. I want to do it. And his reasoning was sort of like, look, man, I paint with light. That's what I do. That's how I see what I do. And in a cave, there's no light. So for me, it's a perfect blank canvas.
On anything like this, you paint the scenery, whatever it may be, with light, or you can't see it. It's not a huge amount of equipment. It's just, you know, you put it on the cave and in the right way. You paint it from the right angles. We use white light, basically. A little warm here and a little cooler there, but it's basically white light and white light on the performers and a little color in the background just for variation. And I appreciate the fact that I didn't get this opportunity until I was really older and experienced, so that I had the discipline to let it be itself and not try to impose my own silly ideas on it. It's great as it is, and we just need to let it be that.
So then I called up a guy, a friend of a friend, and I told him, his name was Jim Yockey, and I said, it's called Bluegrass Underground. He goes, yeah, I listen to it on the radio every Saturday, try not to miss it. And I said, well, the sister show is Music City Roots, produced by Todd Mayo. And he goes, yeah, I know, Wednesday nights, I try not to miss it. I listen every week. And I'm like, well, this is flow. This is going great, you know. And I said, well, we need some advice about how to set this show up. He said, literally the same thing Alan did. He said, I'm in. I want to do that.
Ready, 2, 2, 1. Ready, 5, 5. Ready, 2, 2. Ready, 5, 5. Ready, 4. What I do as a director is I talk the show. That's basically it. If you were to record my PL, it wouldn't make any sense to you. But I'm directing cameras in the moment, and we are live cutting, which will be eventually posted and edited. But in the moment is how you really capture things. It's where television came from, and it's changed quite a bit in all the years. But still, the live moment is what happened. And with this crew, we have some of the best technicians, camera operators, personnel, really on the planet. And they happen to be out of Nashville, Tennessee, which is a, look at that bee, it's flying right in your lens. That's got to be a heck of a shot.
The most impactful shots on this show come from the cameras that are closest, and they have the lower angles, you know, and they're working on a wider element. I work on a bit of a longer lens, and I keep things covered and hold shots that I know they'll need post-production and things like that. And I've been doing, like I said, I've been doing this for 40 years plus, so knowing what to cover and how he's looking at it and knowing him so well helps me a lot.
My name is Rob Devlin. I'm the audio assistant on the TV truck. And what I do here is collect all the audio that's recorded from every track, every instrument, every vocal mic that's downstairs in the cave, and make sure it gets recorded up here in the truck for post-production and editing. So we're set up to record 64 inputs. That'll vary between bands. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, but we're up to 64. We also take those and record them to the different record decks. We've got 14 record decks that record a video. They also take some of these audio channels. We do a Pro Tools record and a couple of backups as well.
I think the biggest challenge is the timing of, it's a very quick pace with this show as far as we tape 4 shows in one day, and even though we do that, the stage gets set completely, and when you see it on TV it only looks like one artist per show.
One story I love to tell is we had, I think it was last year, we had Abigail Washburn and Bela Fleck. And it's funny watching these artists come down in gaiters to begin with. That's just really funny to watch them sit in the back of a trailer and bobble down into a cave. But she was leaving from the back, and she was facing me and was going up the hill and almost hit the top of the cave. And I yelled duck at the last minute, and it literally hit her hair while she was going past it.
What a treat it is to be here. This is something we've looked forward to a long, long time, and it is even more amazing than we expected.
I mean, who would have thought there'd be a chandelier?
Well, I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. Well, I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Abigail Washburn.
Bela Fleck.
So even one of the cool things about the production of this show is, as you can see, I guess, coming through right behind me, there's always something going on. So here we are putting together this network television show, yet every hour on the hour, they're still having folks come through, taking the tour of the caverns, doing their thing, and so it's just kind of a cool flow. And these people are coming, and first time maybe some of them have ever even been in a cave. They're experiencing the joy of it for the first time. We're working on it, doing our thing, and yet it all flows together. And it's a wonderful, wondrous thing. That it's funny that just happened, but it'll happen again. Set your watch in about 59 minutes.
So my job here at Cumberland Caverns is to guide people through the caves, make sure they have a fun time, make sure they learn a lot of the history about the earth and the cave, make sure they leave here with a little bit more knowledge about the earth and about water flow and about how formations and everything form than they had when they came. Just show people stuff that they had no idea was even out there. Make sure they make it out of the cave without getting lost, for one thing. All right, so this cave is 27.6 miles mapped. They have discovered close to 30 miles of this cave, and there is still a few parts of this cave that are still left unexplored. The cave is also 56 degrees year-round, and that never changes due to natural air vents throughout the mountain. Also, it is 99% humid because limestone is a natural water filter. So water is naturally always filtering in, and it's always circulating through the air. Now this cave also has a few very, very large rooms, one being one of the largest cave rooms in Eastern America, the Hall of the Mountain King. We also have our concert room, which is the 5th largest room in the cave. It's called the Volcano Room. Is also the 5th best acoustic environment in the entire world.
I've been coming to the cave since the 80s as a child. I spent the night in the cave as a Girl Scout, and we've continued to tour the cave. But the neatest thing about it is with all that history, and then you get to turn it into a venue.
When we first walked in and we hit the corner and started to go down the hill, Mom said something about there only looking like there's about 400 people, and we ended up figuring out there was about 600. And one of the best parts was when it was all over, everyone started cheering to another song, so we ended up playing a couple more songs. But what was also really cool is all the cameras were around you, and like the VIP section was really cool because you could kind of like walk back there and you could talk to him a little bit, which I really liked talking to Alan Stone. That was one of the best parts.
We're Ed and Rose from Springfield, Illinois. We drove 7 hours to get here, and it was worth every mile. We saw Bluegrass Underground on PBS, and it's like a bucket list thing, so now we're done. And we'll be back, I think. Back. Definitely. It's wonderful.
I'm gonna cross that river. I'm gonna catch them all tonight. We're just so happy to be here. I've always wanted to play here, and it's really another notch on my pistol era.
No matter if they've been in the business for 50 years and played everywhere, they come in here and they realize immediately that this is singular and unique, and it sounds great, and they're playing to an audience that also feels the same way.
Day 5, and all the artists have left the building. The shows went great, nothing went wrong, thankfully. And the crew is packing up all our gear, getting on some gators. We're eating dinner, and then I'm jumping on a gator and I'm getting out of here.
I think it's important to say that the home of this show is on public television, on PBS. There's not another place really in a network form where you get to do shows like this.
You know, I always say to folks, what's the difference between a coincidence, a happenstance, providence, fate, synchronicities? And they're all different words for the same thing in my mind. It's sort of, if you approach something from a psychological perspective, you might say it's Jungian, or from a very religious perspective, you might say that was God's will or the hand of God. And I think that's it's kind of where passion comes from, because you look around in your life and you see these things that, you make choices, but you're sort of choosing maybe fate in a way. And it's hard for me not to feel that way when I look at the sheer amount of sort of coincidental, but really is more providential things that led to sort of an alignment of circumstances that allowed all this to happen.
It's a wrap.
Thank you, man.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.